with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So, fucking last night at about, I think it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock or something like that, my brother gives me a call. He's like, Mum's in hospital. She's had a fucking stroke. I'm like, what the fuck? What happened? He's like, I woke up in the morning. She was fine. I went back to sleep. I woke up again at like, it must have been about 11 a.m. and she was on the couch. She was incoherent, delirious, couldn't move, couldn't walk, couldn't open her eyes, slurring her words, all the fucking signs. So my brother calls the ambulance. They have to stretcher her out. And then everything from then is fuzzy as fuck. I can't get the right information from fucking anyone. So I'm like, let's fucking head straight there. Port Macquarie. It's a 5.5 hour drive from Sydney. But just before we left, I called the hospital. I finally got through. I tried a couple of times and I spoke to the nurse. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? She's like, we don't actually know what's going on. They're not actually calling it a stroke because they don't know if it was a stroke and they're not sure what it was. They need to do an MRI scan and a bunch of shit. I'm like, is she all right? And she's like, yeah, she's okay. I'm like, is she stable? And she's like, yeah, she's stable. She's like, I'll put you on the phone to her. So they put me on the phone to Mum, and Mum's slurring like fuck. And not her usual drunken slur. This is a different slur. This was like brain damage slur. But she sounded okay. I'm like, all right, we won't leave tonight. We'll leave in the morning because we're not going to get there till like fucking 2 a.m. if we leave now. So we'll leave first thing in the morning. So that's what we did. We left first thing in the morning as soon as we had like breakfast, chilled out for a bit, had a shower, watched a little bit of John Cena versus The Undertaker. My kid's into wrestling now. And as soon as all that was done, first thing in the morning, fucking out. So we got into Port Macquarie a couple of hours ago, went straight to the hospital. She was still in emergency. They hadn't moved her. And we went in to see her and the slurring was gone. She'd recovered from that. She didn't look too bad. She reckoned she was still slurring, but she sounded better than she normally does. Still couldn't get any fucking information from anyone. My mum doesn't know what the fuck's going on. She's still waiting for results. She's like, the doctors are saying it might have been a mild stroke. And I'm like, well, fucking, if they'd told me it was a mild one yesterday, I wouldn't fucking driven these 6 hours up here. A mild stroke? Throwing my fucking Christmas plans into fucking chaos for a mild stroke? The way my brother explained it to me when he called me, he's like, fucking Mum's about to die. Anyway, fucking, so we're sitting there and we're having a chat. I'm like, so can you remember anything? She's like, I can't remember anything of the day. It's just a complete blank. I'm like, well, were you drinking? And she's like, no. And then she's like, I had one. I had one drink, which means she had about 3 and it was 11 a.m. So I don't... and which would have meant like fucking 10 darts by then as well. You only have to gently scratch the surface to see what's fucking going on here. So we're all fucking talking, trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, well, I think it might be time for a little bit of a lifestyle change, don't you think? Just to complete silence. Silence and a fucking half eye roll. Like if you're sitting in the emergency room after a fucking stroke and someone says maybe it's time for a little bit of a lifestyle change, at least fucking humor them. Anyone would do that. Anyone would be like, yeah, it's time. I need to fucking change a few things. Maybe the 11 a.m. wines are out the window. I'm going to put the darts out. I'm going to start exercising. Just to humor cunts. Just to fucking show, even if you're just lying. Just bold-faced lying. Even if in your heart of hearts, you know you're not going to change. Just fucking in that moment, just lie. Just go, yeah, it's time for some serious changes. I don't want to be here again. But Mum just fucking deadly silent. Nothing. I'm not changing anything. And I was like, well, yeah, or not. Maybe you don't need to change anything. Maybe you don't need to change anything. If you asked her now, I swear to God, she would say this has nothing to do with the drinking or the smoking. This has nothing to do with drinking and chain smoking for the last fucking 45 years. I suppose you gotta respect it in a way, but fucking, it's hard to be sympathetic. Anyway, we left Mum at the hospital and we went back to their place. Saw my brother and my auntie was at the place as well. My mum's twin sister who drove down from, I forget where the fuck she's from. Anyway, we're at their apartment. I'm speaking to my brother. And then my wife gets a phone call from Mum. And she's like, Darren took the papers, my brother. And my wife's like, fuck, did he? Darren took the papers. And my wife doesn't know what the fuck Mum's talking about. And my wife was like, Darren, did you take the papers? Your mum needs the papers. And my wife is thinking the papers like some sort of medical papers, like a rundown of the diagnosis or something like that, or a referral from the doctors. She's thinking those papers. Mum was talking about the cigarette papers. The fucking cigarette papers. My brother took the fucking cigarette papers. So how's Mum going to be able to have a dart 16 hours after she's had a stroke if she doesn't have the fucking papers? So Mum's sitting there in emergency after a stroke, and her main concern is where's the papers to roll a fucking cigarette. I mean, I'll put her up against anyone. I'll put her up against any of your fucking retarded parents. Don't even fucking try and challenge. It's not even possible you can get someone more retarded than my mom. The warning on the cigarette packet she had is smoking causes strokes. So when my wife was like, yeah, she needs the papers, we were like, she's talking about the cigarette papers. My wife was like, is she serious? Is she serious? I'm like, yeah, deadly. So my wife's like, I don't know what to say here. And so she hung up. Then Mum calls me back and she's like, so who's bringing the papers around? I'm like, I'm not bringing them. I'm like, I don't really feel like bringing cigarette papers into the emergency ward to someone who's just had a fucking stroke. And she was about to go off her head, but I think she realized she was in fucking emergency after a stroke. So she called my brother, and my brother's like, fucking, just give her some fucking papers. Just send the papers to her. So my fucking mum's just out there in the emergency ward, fucking choking back darts, waiting for an MRI scan to confirm that she had a stroke. I'll put her up against any of your fucking parents. I swear to God. She's probably got a fucking cask wine hidden in there somewhere as well. Nothing's going to slow her down. Anyway, I'm in Port Macquarie now, so I'll be here for another day or two. See what fucking happens. I still don't know anything more than I did yesterday. But Mum seems alright. She's well enough to choke back dart. So, I don't know. I don't see any big life changes coming. Fucking hell. Anyway, that'll do for tonight. If you're enjoying the pod, give it a share around, and I'll see you the fuck later.